Okay, I got these now. I got the polarity here. I got this polarity, I got this polarity.
Okay.
3.
You didn't, well, I could do that with you. Let's see what we have. What I like about this group, you work really hard. What you have to do is you have to commit to a wrong answer. Because you can't be perfect, right? There is no perfect here. So let's everybody look at your watch. We're going to pull this off in 10 minutes, and this will be our pre-lunch view. So we can do this together. So we have 2 questions, 2 attempts. I recommend, well, we don't have to write it now, but if you would, probably not bad. If you have your master sheet, what's the polarity between 2 and 8? What's the commonality?
Which
Paragraph 1. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4. Paragraph 2 and 8. Sentence 2 and 8.
1 and 9.
2 and 8. 1 and 9. We have 2 questions, 2 attempts. I recommend everybody write that down on some large piece of paper. You don't have to do it now. You can take a picture of it. But this is kind of your bread and butter for your own work. 2 and 8.
We had a hard time with 2 and 8. So
what is sentence 2 about?
Is it possible to answer question 1? And 8 says yes if you answer question number 2.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
View, possibility, and then what did you say? Yes?
Yes.
If
you answer number 2, the second question. Or if you,
actually, it's the other way around.
if you address.
If you address the first question with the right attitude.
Yeah, the point of view or attitude.
Right? Okay, if right point of view.
But 8 talks about the second, which the human being must discover through the second question.
Depends which point of view you're able to take towards the first, meaning the first question.
Yes.
Right.
So,
To find the right
2 depends on 1. If you take the right point of view towards question 1, you can have the soul experiences of freedom. Yeah, it's Steiner's bad. How about 3 and 7?
Exactly the other way.
3 and 7?
That
Uncertainty.
Okay.
Uncertainty?
Uncertainty. Because of critical judgment.
Okay. It's a little long. 7?
Uncertainty. Some soul decline.
Okay. And that works. They're both red and they're both negative, right?
Yeah. How is that a polarity?
How that is a polarity, because I would say it is freedom or necessity of will. That's something what is certain.
What is
I would
soul
think
what?
the polarity
Uncertainty?
of
Soul
uncertainty
decline.
is certainty. And freedom is a certainty, and a necessity of will is also a certainty.
Okay. Well, in this case, you have the uncertainty that comes from question 1, right? And the decline that comes from the question 2. So there are sicknesses related to the questions from one point of view.
What's the polarity?
That's what we don't understand.
Oh,
What
the Steiner said this style is not going to slap you in the face. So in this case, 2 questions, 2 attempts, we get. But remember the rule, as you go up, it gets more difficult. So the polarity is just about the feeling life. Uncertainty, critical judgment, going inward, thinking about freedom and necessity, this kind of conflict. So both of them are very kind of negative. Well, it's not the case with the other ones.
But doesn't 7 include mightiest possible earnest
Questioning.
So earnest questioning is a
Like a critical judgment.
Uncertainty, yeah.
That would probably be an
Clarity,
easier one.
critical judgment.
Right. Judgment and questioning. Fine.
Earnest questioning.
But her emphasis was, this is obviously related to question 1, this is obviously related to question 2. So it could be the dilemmas of the questions. This side's question 1, this side's question 2. This one is earnest questioning, this one's earnest questioning, this one is judgment, critical judgment. But remember, the deeper you go, the less polarity to grasp onto.
Well, that, it says in the last couple of words, so you either have doubt and uncertainty or you have freedom. That's the choice.
Relatively speaking. But this uncertainty is for the view question. What's 4, 5, and 6? They aren't a true polarity. But what did they all discuss? What is 4 about?
It's about free will.
It's the free will question, right? What is 5 about?
No artificial thought spinning.
Okay, so not artificial, or you could put thought spinning. It's your choice. And what is 6 about?
State of soul.
State of soul.
So there's an inversion, right? It's 3, 4, 4,
Yeah.
5, 6.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, you went deep. It's hard. I'm asking you to do what you would do in 4, 5, 6 weeks to do in 1 day. But you get the basics, right?
And what does state of soul mean?
Could that be peace?
That's a good question.
Define that?
Probably the consciousness soul. If you're a certain stature, level of development, you ask the freedom question.
Actually,
If you're not in that
state of soul.
level of development, you don't ask it.
So there can be a number of states of soul other than consciousness. There can be a state of sentience, there can
Right.
be a state.
But he
so-
says it's naturgemäß,
So what's
meaning
this one
it
here?
comes
That's
naturally
abstract.
at a certain level of your life or your soul development that you really sincerely ask the question of freedom.
And it's
So
a particular state of soul.
yeah, it's a particular state.
Particular, so it's a specific.
Yeah, and it comes
Well,
after the
soul
question of freedom,
activity.
so it's actually, this question only comes about in a particular level of soul, or state of soul, or condition of soul.
So that
And
that would
then
be
this one here's
an
illusional
awareness of-
foundation.
I want to use the term alienation.
In other words, what he's doing here is not illusional, it is
Yeah,
foundational.
no, stick with this, let's look at the form for now. Paragraph 2, 2 and 4, yes.
Okay, so, the polarity between sentence
Oh,
1
5.
and 5
Yeah, what do you have?
was, on the one hand, these two questions are integral to the human soul, and 5, at the same time, life is, it's enigmatic. You've got the polarity between integrality and enigmatic, an enigma.
Paragraph 2.
Next
Yeah, they did paragraph 2, someone else did paragraph
2 and 4?
Okay, so you have the polarity between abstraction or theoretical
Okay.
and then soul activity. So that's the opposite.
Again, definite. Region of soul.
Right.
Number 3?
Okay, so again, it's not a polarity, but he's saying what you're going to read here is not illusional, it is foundational.
Okay, so you want to make that its own polarity.
In
So
a-
if it's
yeah.
not illusion, that would be your red level, and if it's a foundation, that would creep up to the eye level. So even though it's not spelled out with the independent sentence that goes to the yellow,
Mhm.
he mushed them together.
Got it.
Not illusion, but foundation, right? But that's very complicated, don't do that on your own yet, please. Okay,
Very
so
complicated.
paragraph 3 is
Don't do that
about
on your own.
knowledge, and
Good
maybe
idea.
I'll do this later. You can break that one sentence into 4 parts, but we won't do that now. Did you guys discover
Why would you rather
anything
not do it
on
your own?
paragraph 410?
Why would you not want
How
to
the
do it?
polarities go?
Discovery.
I mean, what did your synopsis tell you?
Our synopses, we found number 1 to be content, and the opposite of that to be certainty.
You're 4 now, right?
Yeah, we're in 4 now. So number 1 is content,
3 and 4 or 3?
and
4.
number 5 is certainty. Very good. How about 2 and 4?
And then purpose would be number 2.
Okay, purpose.
And 4, we found foundation.
Did you say foundation?
Yeah.
3?
3, we found limited to 2 questions.
Six?
Universally acceptable.
7?
Well, what about 10?
I'm sorry.
6 and 10?
Yeah.
What did you
That's
have,
the
what
old
did you have
habit
for
of
10?
mine.
What did you have for 10 hours?
Style
Yeah.
makes acceptable.
Style. Right, the style of writing makes acceptable.
And 7 was spiritual scientific results.
Spiritual scientific results.
And then 9, knowledge before experience.
It's spiritual knowledge, right? Or
Yes.
knowledge before spiritual experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and 8?
Open-minded spiritual life. Is that what you had on?
I had, well, open consideration.
Okay,
Given the
open-minded
spiritual world, so,
consideration.
Yeah. Yeah.
open-minded
So,
consideration.
do people see the polarities a little bit here? Where are the scientists? On the blue, green, or red level?
Green.
Look again. The content, where's the certainty?
Oh.
Right? So the content is actually 1893. It gives you certainty in science. It's universally acceptable, meaning scientists can read it, by accepting the style of the writing. The purpose, in 1918, he says today too, is the foundation of what? Yes, it's a foundation of spiritual science. It's for those who are attracted to spiritual science, acceptable, he says, and it leads to knowledge before spiritual experience. So the scientists are on the blue level, the anthroposophists are on the green level, right? 1918. Who's on the red level? The eye level, in this case, astral level. Yeah, who is he talking to? The reader. You, the eye of the reader. So he limited himself to the 2 questions, and the reader has to have an open-minded consideration of the 2 questions. So now he's talking to you. So you have this form. But it only works as a whole. The blue, this is very exceptional actually in Steiner. The blue is scientists, the green are anthroposophists, and the red are the individuals. Is that okay? A lot to eat, right? Number 5?
So, I guess for number 1, it's 2 positions.
Okay.
This also is in regards to the tension between 1 and 5. We're dealing with the element of time. 1 is dealing with then, 5 is dealing with now.
What's your synopsis for 5?
It's the same as 1, but yet different,
Okay.
just like the C.
Same and different. Great. 2 and 5? 4?
Unchanged, 2 is unchanged, and then 4 is actually changed. And the tension between the 2, I guess, is the misunderstandings.
Misunderstandings. Great. And 3?
That's the turning point because of additions.
Turning point because of additions. Very nice. And that's your basic form. So what we're creating here is your cheat sheet for the lecture. So you saw before you had a 6-fold cheat sheet. Now you have a 36-fold cheat sheet. And then you would learn actually to present this in your groups, the way it was written. And what happens, you're able to take more and more content, and eventually you have no catchwords, you just have shapes. And from the shapes, you can recall the content. The shapes actually, then you see how Steiner lectured off a pentagram, you're going to do the same eventually. You can put a shape in front of you, and you can follow your line of thought. Oh, there's a turning inside out. Oh, one more time, right? And this is where the beginning of that is. You're going to turn inside out a lot. 6?
So 6 is, one, it says it's sold out, very simple, so it's no longer available.
Sold out?
Yeah, just say no longer available.
Go ahead.
And on the opposite, he talks about another rival, a second book that's available. So unavailable, unavailable, opposite.
Great. Available and unavailable.
And in the next level, he left it the same, so it's still valid.
Same.
Mhm.
And 5?
And the opposite of that is that it stands alone, so it's not affected by contemporary thought.
Nice.
No need to change. It's unchanged because there's no need to change it.
Sounds familiar, right?
Very simple, huh?
Right.
And the top level is he considered contemporary philosophical views, so he was willing to think about those, but he consciously chose not to put them in. So thought about including them and did not include them.
Okay. Oh wait, and 4 is what?
4, I think, is constraints on his.
His time?
Oh, that he didn't put it in, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's the not included part.
Yeah, not included.
Okay. On that note, why don't you go to lunch and we'll come back and we'll work on the next forms. Any questions?
Question about the inversion. So, is it the strength of the polarity that lead to this turn? But if it's turned, I heard you.
What's number 5 there?
No arguments.
Well,
He's
let's
just-
say.
oh, number 5. No need
Because
to
we had a
change.
5.
That's that one where that has
It
10.
doesn't have its own independent
No, 10 is
paragraph.
the-
So there was a question there
I
whether
didn't-
there were
I
2
didn't look
aspects
at
to that center inverting
I
sentence.
didn't do that.
Oh, well, I just did, I just trying to take a picture.
So some people are looking for,
It has 2 sentences, or one has 3, or one.
right, yeah, so the 4, okay. But even in this case, the inversion sentence is number 5, not 4 and 6, even though they're the same theme. Because Steiner says, question, 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 and then he judges. He said, this question is not a spinning of thoughts, I'll let you know, sir, right? So he's judging what came before, thus turning it inside out.
So that's inversion.
That's an inversion
That
process.
4, 5, and 6 are inversion.
Just 5,
Just 5.
because 4 is the question listed. 5 is judging the question. That's how he makes the inversion. And then you'll see every sentence after that is an if question, or if. I know, it's a lot for one day. Yeah, yes.
On paragraph 6, the way that we're doing it has me distinguish between changes that have to do with, changing the words so people today will understand it, but vehemently saying, but I'm not going to argue with misconceptions. Just what part of what you read didn't you understand? And I'm not going to go into arguing. So he's rejecting the idea of playing logic games.
Okay, and 6 here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's an important distinction that wouldn't really, you just think no changes, but he's distinguishing between small.
That's part 4. He consciously
Yeah.
chose
Yeah.
not to
Right,
include.
right.
And that's what's strange about, why does he say that then? And then, for me, the form answers the question, right? Or the fact that they didn't write about freedom. But remember, there's always levels to everything he says. That's the hardest thing to grasp. Any other questions about this? No? Okay, enjoy your lunch.
We'll see you at 2,
Okay,
What time is it now?
12:30. So we have an
Don't
hour
eat
and a
dessert.
half.
Be back at 2, ready to go.
don't eat dessert, right?
No, because we have dessert here.
Yeah, that's true. You don't have to have dessert with lunch. It's a special day. We'll tell you why later.
So you're gonna try to pick Lisa?
I already asked her.
Well, I'm here.
Earlier
Oh,
today.
you already had done it.
Huh?
You already had done it.
I asked her if she wanted to have lunch with me because I wanted to talk to her about something. That's all I told her.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
But now I'm going to tell her what it is that I like.
And then that was sort of free to not doing workshops.
Yeah, of course. Well, I don't know whether you're going to see me later.
Whatever, I want to have a little.
So, eating?
What?
Where are you going to eat?
Well, I like the Japanese restaurant.
Which one is that? I never know. Oh, the
I don't know what
barbecue?
it's
The
called.
Japanese
True. It's
barbecue?
called True.
No, no, I said the Japanese restaurant.
Oh, the Jap. Oh, where is that?
It's,
It's a barbecue, right?
Oh, that one here?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
Well, you,
can
you
I
wanna
go
join
with
me?
you, please?
Yeah, okay.
Open mind might be a state of soul.
Then of course she's upset because
Do you sleep well?
But I did sleep well last night.
Right.
and she said, bring me, and I said,
Sorts. Larry, you know what I'll do?
Yeah, these weekends, really, especially when you have stuff to do that's involved with it.
Whether it's a should you look at this as groups of three? Because you don't want to force my game on. Maybe this works for Okay. Well, maybe you're right. Maybe here's the food. So the reason
her sister,
Would you like to join us?
Brilliant. Because I read the